Pew, 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 pew. What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Saturday Weapon Ray. So if you saw the teaser, you saw that we would be covering the Kel-Tec KSG today. So what is the Kel-Tec KSG? The Kel-Tec KSG is a American-made pump action 12-gauge shotgun. Okay, so there are essentially two different types of shotguns out there. There are pump actions, where you physically have to basically rack the slide here to eject the shell and then to chamber a new round. And then you have semi-automatic ones. Now there are kind of two different types of semi-automatics. A lot of different semi-automatics are usually magazine fed. Some are manually fed, and then once you cock it once, it's semi-automatic from there on out. But the other ones are magazine fed. This one, just think about pump actions as basically comparing it to a manual vehicle, where this action would essentially be your shifter. Okay, so let's go over the specifics of this gun. So I bought this gun several years ago. This was actually the third gun that I bought, just because I had already had a pistol and a rifle, and I thought, well, let me get something else, something a little bit different. So I got this Kel-Tec KSG. So most of this gun is made out of a high-density polymer, which is good when it comes to overall weight. You can actually get a fairly light gun by using polymer. The downside, though, is that, you know, for obvious reasons, plastic is not going to be always as durable as some sort of steel. So there are pros and cons when it comes to that. I have not had any issues with the plastic thus far, but just know that this will be less durable than steel. Okay, moving on. It is a pump action, which I actually chose this for one particular reason. Pump action shotguns are usually less finicky when it comes to different types of ammunition. So shotguns can shoot a lot of different types of shells. There's birdshot, which is the tiny little BBs. Then there's buckshot, which are a little bit bigger BBs. And then you have a slug, which is essentially a 1 ounce lead projectile. And there are also different sizes. So I've seen shells as small as about 1 inch, and then they go up to about 3 inches. So I have fed 1 inch shells through this all the way up to 3 inch shells, and I have not had any issues. With the semi-automatic ones, those can be a little bit more finicky because those are typically built to accept 2 3/4 inch or 3 inch. So if you are looking for possibly a home defense, I would say this is probably a safer bet for one, consistency, right, and less malfunctions, because this is, again, more of a manual style and not automatic or semi-automatic. And so you're going to be able to run a little bit more, but almost as importantly is if someone breaks into your house and you do one of these, every single person, other than deaf people, know what that means, all right? So that alone could deter somebody from coming further into your home. So that's the other reason why I went with this gun. Okay, so this gun is actually a little unique. So this has 2 loading chambers. So you see one loading tube here, one loading chamber, and then if I flip this over, and I get this out of the way, you'll see the second loading chamber here. Now, this is a bullpup style shotgun. Now, we went over bullpups earlier when I was talking about the Steyr AUG, and a bullpup is essentially when the action, right, is moved behind the trigger. So this is a full 18-inch barrel, but the overall length is only about 25 inches. This is about the length of your standard H&K MP5. So this is really small and tactical. This is another reason why I chose this. It's no longer my self-defense, home defense weapon now, but it used to be, and the reason I chose this on top of, you know, the other couple things that I just talked about a minute or two ago is the overall length, right? There's other shotguns out there that are better than this one, subjectively and maybe objectively, but those shotguns are usually much longer. You're talking 35, 40, 45 inches in length, and if you live in a smaller home, it's not going to be very easy to maneuver around your home, right? You're going to have your shotgun's going to peek around the corner far before you do, and that could give any potential intruder a leg up, and they can know exactly where you are. So that's another reason why I went with this. But you can see here the two loading tubes right here. So the two little white caps here, that's where you actually load the shotgun shells. And then you have a selector switch here, okay? So if the selector switch is pointed over here, I'm only feeding from this area, and if I draw it over here, it's now feeding from this area. Kind of cool, very different design. So I could have shotgun slugs in this side, and I could have buckshot over here. And you can draw from either one of those. And then if you put it right in the middle, the gun will just draw from either one, alternating until you run out. The capacity on this is quite large as well. So it can fit 7 and 7 plus 1. So this can actually have a 15 round capacity, which is unreal for a shotgun. Most shotguns have anywhere between 2 to 10 rounds, and this one can actually potentially hold 15. And then if you're running 1-inch shells, I believe that this can hold upwards of 20 or 24. And so you could just be shooting all day long. So that's actually pretty nice, is that selector switch. All right. So now let's go to what I've done to this. So not too much. I've basically just added stuff to it. There are a few companies. Kel-Tec makes a lot of accessories. There's a couple other companies, M-Carbo, I think I'm pronouncing that right, that makes some other stuff too. Speaking of M-Carbo, I actually have their breacher muzzle device here. So you can see it is serrated. So if I needed to use this to break a window or break into a door, or frankly, if someone gets close to me and if I don't want to use lethal, I hit this into their chest, that's not going to feel very good, or really any part of their body. And you can see it already marked on my hand. If you really press into it, it doesn't feel very good. So that's why I chose this as well, is that I can also use this as a non-lethal. And for me, I want to have as many non-lethal options as I can until I have to use lethal, right? So going back from there, I do have these flick up M-Bus sights. So these are Magpul M-Bus sights. These are really nice. They're plastic. I know some people might have a problem with that. And there are some downsides with plastic. You know, they can warp and they can be affected by cold or heat. And they can be a little bit more fragile. But I actually like these a lot. Again, they're very easy to use. You just saw, you can flick them up. And they're very nice. And I like them. I went with the OD green, which kind of goes with the gun here. And yeah, they're not super expensive. I think I was able to get these for 70, 75, maybe 80 bucks. There's some iron sights out there that will cost upwards of 200. So these are not too bad. Not the cheapest, but certainly not the most expensive. So back, you can see I've got this Ranger band here. So I use Ranger bands to tie up all of my slings, so they're just out of the way. Ranger bands are also good because, you know, in a pinch, you could use this as some sort of tourniquet. In a survival situation, these are highly flammable, so you could use these to start a fire. So you'll see, and you've already seen these Ranger bands on several of my guns, and that's why. It's because not only do they get the sling up and out of the way, but there's many other uses you can use for this as well. All right, down here, I have a Troy Industries modular foregrip, okay, vertical foregrip. Now this actually it comes in 3 different parts. So you're seeing 2 parts right now, and then there's a third. So you can actually make this a lot longer, but I want the little stubby guy here. I don't have huge hands, so I don't need a 4 or 5 inch long vertical grip. I really like this a lot. I spray painted it. It does not come in this kind of foliage OD green. They come in either coyote tan or black. This one was originally black, and I spray painted it green just to match with the gun. I really like it a lot. This is aluminum, and it's got a great little texture here. The one problem, though, potential problem, is because of the polymer Picatinny rail, you do have to worry about integrity, right? So attaching metal to polymer, there's always a little bit of risk involved, just because one material is going to be attached to a theoretically weaker material. So that's just something to think about, right? Even if you were to attach some sort of plastic vertical grip or angled vertical grip, you're still attaching it to plastic, which again, plastic is always going to be a little bit weaker and less reliable than steel. Not that this is unreliable, but it will just be less reliable. So that's something to definitely think about. Okay, moving on up, I have a Holosun 403 GL. This is just a red dot. I've talked about Holosuns in the past. I absolutely love Holosun, not only for the technology that they put within these optics, but also their customer service is beyond incredible. So right up here, this is the battery compartment. You have windage and elevation right here, and these little caps can actually be screwed off, and you can see these little ridges on the caps are actually mini tools, and they can be used to dial in your optic, which is nice. And then on top here, you've got the brightness settings, plus and minus. And then I'm going to see if we can get the red dot here for you. I don't know if you're actually going to be able to see it with everything. I don't think I'm going to be able to see it with the light. A little bit. Right there, you can kind of see it. Okay. So it's a nice little 2 MOA dot. I like this a lot. It's great for quick target acquisition. So that's really nice. So then if we move back to the trigger here, we actually have the safety is very similar to the AUG. It's this push bar safety, so red for fire, and then I don't know if you can see white for safe, right? So it's easy to actuate. It's I actually like this a little bit better than the Steyr AUGs because this is actually rounded a little bit more, where the Steyr AUGs is more defined and sharp. So this doesn't really dig into my hand. I haven't really had any issues with that. It is unloaded. Okay. So we're gonna go over the trigger now. So the trigger is okay. When it comes to bullpups, triggers are never gonna be great. So the trigger has virtually no take up. It's got, that's the take up right there. It's got about 1 millimeter. Let me see if I can get this better. It's got about 1 millimeter of take up here. And then it breaks, okay, very tactile, audible break. And then it's got not a great reset. There's almost, I mean, you let off the trigger and it immediately resets, but the reset, the tactile and audible, it's not fantastic. I would say the trigger pull is probably about 6 pounds or so. It's okay. Again, the trigger is not fantastic. This is just the stock trigger, OEM trigger. They do have, I believe, metal triggers that I heard are better, but I have not tested that out, so I really don't know. These little holes here, they're for the takedown pins. So when you take this gun down, which is pretty easy, the pins can actually fit right in here. Now the pistol grip is hollowed out just to save weight. And then you've got the ejection here. Now going back to the ejection port, some people have problems because this is actually downward ejecting. So instead of most guns, the bullets are coming out to the side. The shells are actually shooting straight down into the ground, which is nice because people that are right or left-handed don't have to worry about shells going into their face or coming across their face. So that's really good. The downside, and I haven't had a problem with this, but a lot of times people will get hit when they are grabbing the gun and they're shooting. Shells will actually come down and it will hit their wrists. And that actually is a problem. And when these shells come out, they're coming out pretty fast and it can actually bruise and also cut your arm up. Again, I have not had that problem, but just be aware that that is a problem with this. Now, Kel-Tec did come up with a deflector shield that sits over top, and then the deflector shield comes down like this, and it's kind of angled underneath the gun, like so. So the shells will actually hit the deflector shield and bounce away from your arm. So there is a way to avoid that if this does happen to you, but unfortunately you do have to buy aftermarket parts for that. I'm not sure exactly how much that costs, but it is something that you would have to buy. The butt pad here, it's okay. It's a hard rubber. I mean, it absorbs some, but it's not fantastic by any stretch of the imagination. I do believe there are replacement butt pads. I just haven't invested in any. Like I said, this, for the most part, this shotgun is pretty stock, pretty standard, but I do really like it. Kel-Tec sometimes gets some flack, I think, just because a lot of their guns are cheaper and because they're made of polymer. People don't like them, but I have this, and then in the coming weeks, I'm going to review another gun from Kel-Tec, and I really like them a lot. They've been really good to me. I haven't had any issues whatsoever. I've actually had less issues with these guns than I have with some other guns that cost a lot more. So I don't know what that says, but you know, take that how you will. And then finally, I've talked about this as well. I have a Faro Concepts slingster here. And this is a really nice sling. You've got a pull tab here to easily tighten or loosen up the slack. The material is really good. The craftsmanship is nice. The padding doesn't appear to be that thick, but it offers just enough comfort for me, which is nice. And up here, I've got a clip, which is hooked in right up here. And then I just have it hooked in the rear just like that. All right, and that is about it. So if you guys have any questions, please comment down below, and I'll see you on the next episode.